Students of Reddit, what was the reason for why one of your teachers had a breakdown during class? The teacher was bullied and disrespected every day. One day an idiot threw a geometry compass and it got stuck on her cork board, like when you do knife throwing, right besides her while she was writing on the board. Instant meltdown, in tears, she left the class and I never saw her again. Can't blame her, she probably thought her life was in danger at this point. Some schools/neighborhoods are very hard. Sadly, this sounds like my former high school and I don't think I live in a rough neighborhood. I've had a couple teachers that were not my favorite, but I would never imagine hurling something at them. The worst thing I did to a teacher was put a sticky note under her mouse. I guess that some kids are dealing with things, and that the legal ramifications would be severe, but I'm 6'4" and not skinny. If I saw someone throw a fucking sharp object at a teacher like that, they would get a backhand slap to send them across the room. I was a goof off in school. We never physically assaulted teachers with dangerous objects. We just joked around and didn't do our work. I hope the student was expelled immediately. This teacher always seemed tough as nails, so it was a shock when a kid just said she looked like a pit bull. She did have jowls, and she left crying. One of my teachers looked like Pitbull the rapper, but was cool about it. Nice. My girlfriend works with a guy who looks like Pitbull and regulars that come in call him Mr. Worldwide. She was a substitute teacher at elementary school, and at some point a kid took it too far and threw a bottle at her. It was an empty plastic bottle, but still. Poor teacher. Sometimes it's not the physical things that hurt you, and sometimes it's a plastic bottle to the face. She was teaching about the harmful effects of plastic on the environment. Not my teacher but my younger sisters at the time. The class was making fun of her recent miscarriage and her mum dying of cancer. Yes, teenagers are cruel. Jesus, what the f***? I mean, I know some of us are assholes, but like the entire class? Who raised those rancid human beings? I think it was all but like 5 of them. Either way, it was extremely f***ed up. They were like 13 to 14 at the time. Yeah, middle schoolers have a tendency to be the worst. All the ability to hurt someone without having developed the empathy needed to avoid hurting people. Obviously, not everyone is like that, but teenagers also mature at different rates. Most middle schoolers are like wannabe lil shit gangsters in my opinion. It's rather scary. Plus mob mentality. I did shit in middle school I would have never done if my friends didn't do it first/talk me into it. My math professor in college was going through a divorce and they were fighting for custody of their 2 younger children. You can tell he was irritated because he wore his emotions on his sleeve. One day he came into class about 5 minutes late and he was physically shaking. He was violently crying and apologized to us and said the class was cancelled. He apparently lost the custody fight with his ex-wife. Teacher hit and killed a student walking on their way to school. At my high school, a student hit and killed an elementary school teacher on his way to school. Then he tried to act tough about it like he thought it was funny. Most people already hated this guy, but this really sealed his fate. Jesus Christ, that's awful. I can't comprehend why someone would act like that. I see why he was already hated. He was a stereotypical bully. Big, loud, aggressive, condescending. Chewed tobacco at lunch, spit his dip spit on the ground. Willingly stupid. He even got a f***ing Superman tattoo across his shoulders. It was terrible too. There were so many reasons to hate that guy. My 8th grade Spanish teacher and the freshman baseball coach were having an affair. It eventually became public knowledge and she had several breakdowns as her divorce played out over the course of my 8th grade year. I had the pleasure of joining the freshman baseball team the next year and experiencing his own share of breakdowns from his own divorce. I had 2 teachers who were married, with a son in my year, and she had an affair with the music teacher. The married couple divorced in my, and the son's, final year. The son went off the rails and got a 15-year-old pregnant, and all their lives went downhill except the music teacher who moved to England. Holy crap. A similar thing happened at my school. Long hours, stressful job with not much recognition. Must be tough on marriages. My junior high biology teacher legit used to have weird ass flashbacks of when he fought at Vietnam. It was pretty sad to see. We had a substitute teacher that would make all students in the class pop open their metal binder rings in unison. Otherwise, the sound of multiple binders rings opening at different times would remind of him artillery sounds. We had a middle school teacher who also suffered from PTSD from serving in Vietnam. Poor guy didn't like loud noises. He'd take cover if someone slammed a book on a desk. Sadly, the quad sticks in my school knew this and routinely did this for their own entertainment. What absolute pieces of shit. My history/government teacher has been to Vietnam and it's quite known that he was on the front lines. So in the middle of a lecture a girl raised her hand and asked,
"Have you ever killed someone?"
The question caused him to go silent and leave the room for quite a while. Luckily, the girl was ripped a new asshole by her fellow classmates. My best friend caused the school librarian to lose it because she thought she caught him masturbating in the non-fiction section. Edit, for clarification, the librarian accused my friend of masturbating in said section of the school library. He has denied all allegations and refuses to answer any more questions on the matter. Well, at least he was keeping it real, am I right? A guy at my university of 14,000 plus students got caught jacking it at a library and the person who caught him took a video of herself walking up and confronting him and posted it on the school's Snapchat. University Police Department sent out an email asking people to find him, because he was being arrested for public indecency, but they were also afraid that because of the video he might hurt himself. The worst part is that instead of using his school ID picture in the email, they used a comically zoomed in still from the moment he was caught. This one cool guy, let's call him Davey, tormented our English teacher for no reason. She was very sweet and passionate about her job, but this guy was a dick. He would write things on the board before class really small in random spots like witch, pig and just other random insults. The one day that caused the breakdown was when he stole the remote for the wall-mounted TV. Her class was the time period that had the daily announcements, so the TV was heavily used. So she searched for the remote, couldn't find it and had to stand on her tiptoes to control the TV from the button on the front. A little bit through the announcements the TV turns off. Everyone's reaction was weird, so teacher got back up to turn the TV on again. A minute or so later went off again. Of course at that point it starts getting suspicious and she jokes,
"Okay, is someone playing a prank on me?"
No one says anything because no one knew Davey had the remote. He repeats turning it off 2 more times directly after she turned it back on and she snapped,
"Okay. Who has the remote? Who is doing this?"
And being immature 9th graders we all start snickering cause that shit's funny. After no one fessed up she starts unloading about how's she been having a tough time lately and starts spewing out all this information about her personal life, just ranting away. And during the middle of her rant Davey turns the TV on and starts flipping through the channels. The teacher lets out an animalistic yell and burst into tears. Cue entire class with shocked Pikachu face. She throws the classroom door open and runs out. She was gone for like 20 minutes and returns with the JROTC teacher, literal hard-ass steel drill sergeant. He was calmly talking to us how what we were doing as a class was shitty to her and the perp needs to step forward and Davey had the balls to turn the TV off and on. Dead silence. You could have heard dust falling on the ground and everyone was like, "We're dead." At this point someone who knew he took it quietly pointed at Davey. The drill instructor goes over to him and literally pulls him up out of his desk by his shirt collar and screams in his face,
"Do you have the remote?"
Feet dangling off of the ground, his whole arm was shaking as he took the remote out of his pocket and showed it. His ass was grass now. He was swiftly removed from the class by the drill instructor and teacher while we all sat there for the rest of the class doing nothing until the bell rang. Some guy came in late and started talking to his friends. The teacher chimed in with something like,
"If you're gonna be late, you might as well not show up at all."
So he said,
Fine.
and left. She stared blankly at the door for a good 30 seconds, and then yelled at everyone else in the class for what one, now absent, student did. I distinctly remember her claiming at one point that
Everyone in this room is failing this class.
in 4th grade my teacher found out her husband was having an affair with someone from the school, and she tried to fight the teacher and got suspended for a couple of weeks. My 4th grade childish ass was just running around the classroom and screaming,
Fight her.
Senior year in high school math class we had a sub. This guy who always gave the regular teacher a hard time started making barnyard animal noises at her. To the point he interrupted every time she tried to talk. She started crying. I felt bad for her, but none of us told him to stop. Some kids joined it. One of our teachers had been asked not to return the next year, which in my school is the equivalent to "you're fired." He yelled at our class for the full 45 minutes about how he doesn't understand what he did wrong and he doesn't apologize for whatever he did. He had made racist comments in front of the class and obviously had a bias when grading. Also, he made like 12 students cry in class because embarrassed them in front of the class. Anyway, he was typically pretty stoic, and by the end of class he was practically in tears, so it was as close to a breakdown as I think he gets. It was my junior year in high school and actually one of the first few days in class. On the second day of school, one of the math teachers got arrested for possession of child pornography. The next day we were all in class talking about it, and our calculus teacher was so upset she left the room and didn't return the rest of the period. Long-term substitute teacher was in Playboy. Student brought in the magazine and asked her to sign it. She left crying and we never heard about her again. Had a long-term sub whose kids were in the system. Daughter's pictures were posted by her ex-boyfriend and spread around like wildfire. Switched districts after she found out. Only got worse for her family. Her second kid was 2 years younger than his sister. Shortly after the pics came out, some dude goes up to him during lunch and says,
Hey, she's hot, right?
as he shows the guy one of the pics but with the face cropped out. The brother says yes, probably confused but not wanting to be called out for not being all macho, and the kid shows him that it's his sister. Brother was a bit of a douche, but him bursting into tears right there was not pleasant to see. New kid, bit of a douche, kept asking why. Questions for everything. Teacher banged his head on a wall in frustration. We all laughed because we thought it was a joke. He picked up a book, flipped through it, then threw the book across the room and walked out. Vice principal came by a few minutes later and took over. Douche kid was gone a few weeks later. Despite supposedly being the gifted and talented class, we constantly went back and forth with the teacher in usually a joking, clapback atmosphere. One day she decided she didn't like that and just started yelling,
I don't need this job, my husband is a doctor at Johns Hopkins.
And then didn't come back for a while. For a while. Apparently she did need the job. Not during class, but in college I had an elective that was an hour, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We arrived and the professor didn't show up for over 20 minutes, a third of the class time. So we left. Within an hour, everyone who left got a long scathing email about how rude it was of us and how we
Would not have left if she was a male professor.
Same professor had to take a leave of absence years later for verbally harassing and embarrassing a student with autism. Thanks for watching. Be sure to check out my other videos. Also, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe and ring the notification bell.